The stranger at the market's edge, the colony's market pulsed with noise and motion. Dust swirled in golden shafts of sun between the overhead tarps. People moved fast, always fast dealing, shouting, grabbing, trading. Drones hovered low, with delivery crates, their rotors humming above sizzling food stalls. Jack moved through it like a ghost, head down, jacket zipped high. His hands stayed in his pockets, fingers always close to the small knife clipped inside. He came for supplies: dry fuel sticks, vitamin packets, a new filter for the broken purifier in his shed. Nothing more. He didn't do small talk. He didn't do community. He did silence. Until he saw her, she was just a shape at first. A bundle against the western wall of the market, where shadows lingered even during the heat of midday. Wrapped in a tattered cloak, the color of ash, people passed her like she was invisible. Some even stepped over her feet like she was part of the ground. Jack's feet stopped moving. He didn't plan it. He simply saw her, and everything else faded. Her skin was pale blue, almost cracked along her cheeks and collarbone. Not makeup, not injury, just her. Her eyes were wide, glowing faint purple in the light, too large for her face. Alien, clearly, but not the dangerous kind. Not like the ones on the posters. She looked young though, with her species. Jack couldn't be sure. What he could tell was simple. She was starving, and no one cared. She didn't beg. She didn't hold out a cup. She just sat, still, watching. Her eyes followed every piece of hot food passed from one hand to another. Every roll of bread, every grilled ration strip, every steaming bowl. She watched with hunger so deep, it felt like silence in a storm. Jack stood 5 feet away. She didn't even notice him at first. Then her eyes flicked up and met his. Not for long, just a breath. But in that second, something passed between them. She didn't flinch. She didn't look away. She just waited. Jack stepped forward slowly. She didn't move. "Are you hungry?" he asked. Her lips parted, cracked dry. She nodded once. "What do you eat?" Her mouth opened again. Voice barely more than air. "Warm," she whispered. He blinked. "Warm." She nodded again. "Not meat, not roots, just warm." Jack reached into his pack, dug past the tubing and wire until his hand found the emergency ration heat-activated protein roll. Not delicious, but hot and safe. He crouched beside her and opened the wrapper slowly. She didn't grab it. She didn't reach. She looked at it like it was a dream. "Why?" she whispered. "Why are you giving it to me?" Jack held the bar out. "Because you need it. No one gives for nothing." "I'm not no one." She stared at him again, and then, slowly, reached out and took the food. Her fingers were thin, shaking. She didn't bite it, not right away. She just held it in her palms, feeling the heat rise from the center. She closed her eyes for a second, as if remembering something from another life. Then she took a bite, small, careful. Her mouth trembled. Her throat worked like she was swallowing fire. Tears gathered in the corners of her eyes, not from the heat, but from the warmth. Jack sat beside her on the dusty ground. People stared. He could feel them. Whispers, snorts, the curl of disapproval. Ignored it. "When did you last eat?" he asked. "I don't remember," she said. "Do you have a place to stay?" She shook her head. "Where are your people?" Her voice cracked. "Gone." Jack sat back. He didn't say anything for a moment. Then, "What's your name?" She hesitated. "Nara, I'm Jack." She pulled the cloak tighter. "You shouldn't sit here. I'm nothing." Jack stood and held out a hand. "Come on, where? Somewhere warm." Nara looked at his hand like it might burn her. Her fingers moved, twitched. "You don't want me near your things. Your house. I'm not clean. I don't belong." "That's not for you to decide," Jack said. She stared a moment longer. Then, carefully, she reached up and took his hand. Her touch was cold, weak, but it was real. He pulled her gently to her feet. People stared harder now, feeding the filth. One woman muttered. Jack didn't answer. He just kept walking with Nara beside him. His home wasn't much. A rust-colored dome near the edge of the colony line. A solar panel half broken, a fence mostly for show. Inside was warmer bare walls, a wood stove that hissed when it worked, and a battered couch older than the colony itself. Jack led Nara inside. She didn't ask questions, didn't touch anything. She simply stepped into the room and stood near the wall, like she wasn't sure she was allowed. Jack made soup, just broth really, salt and water and soft grain. He handed it to her in a plain bowl. She sat on the floor, near the couch but not on it, and held the bowl like it was made of gold. She took one sip and closed her eyes. Jack brought her a blanket from the closet. She clutched it to her chest, didn't say thank you, didn't cry, but her shoulders softened. "I will leave tomorrow," she said softly. "Only if you want to." Jack replied, "I always leave." That's how this ends. Jack turned down the lights. Not this time. Outside, the desert winds howled. Inside, the room was quiet. And for the first time in years, Nara felt something she'd forgotten had. A name, hope. Learning what warm means, the morning light came slow through the scratched window pane. Thin stripes of gold painted the wall beside where Nara slept, or at least rested. She hadn't moved all night. The blanket Jack gave her was still clutched around her shoulders like it might vanish if she let go. She sat with her knees drawn up to her chest, staring at the steam rising from the old metal kettle Jack had set to boil. He didn't speak. Not yet. He moved quietly, pouring hot water into 2 chipped mugs. One held tea, the other was just warm water. He brought both to the table, then glanced toward her. You drink tea? He asked. Nara didn't answer right away. She just stared at the rising steam, her fingers uncurled slightly from the blanket. What is tea? She asked. It's leaves, Jack said. But warm ones. She stood slowly, not weak, just cautious, like every move had to be planned. She walked toward the table without lifting her feet fully off the ground. When she reached the chair, she looked at it first, then at him. You can sit, Jack said. It won't bite. She sat stiffly, folding the blanket in her lap. Jack pushed the mug of water toward her. She picked it up with both hands, held it near her mouth but didn't drink. She just closed her eyes. Her breathing slowed. It's warm, she whispered. Better than cold, Jack said. Nara nodded. He placed a plate in front of her. Bread, a boiled egg, a square of dried fruit paste. Basic rations. She looked at them like they were a puzzle. For me, she asked. Jack raised an eyebrow. You think I eat on both sides of the table? She hesitated. I didn't earn this. You don't have to earn food. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the bread. She took the smallest bite, chewed carefully. Her eyes watered. You okay? She shook her head. I don't know. It's not pain. Just she touched her cheek and looked surprised to find it wet. It's warm, she repeated. Jack didn't push her. He just ate his own meal in silence. Nara ate slow, like she was afraid it might disappear. Between bites, she watched everything. The walls, the shelves, the tools on the workbench. In the corner, she kept her feet close under her chair, never stretching out. She chewed with her mouth closed, hands curled like she expected to be struck at any moment. After she finished, she placed her hands neatly on the table and stared at them. You okay? Jack asked again. She nodded. I cleaned your floor once before. You woke. It was dirty. Jack glanced at the floor. It was cleaner. The dust near the door was gone, the stain scrubbed faintly with some old rag. You didn't have to, he said. I wanted to. Most people don't do things just because they want to. I'm not most people. Jack smiled a little. No argument here. That afternoon, Jack worked on the solar connector outside. The sun was sharp, but the wind carried grit, making it hard to focus. He unscrewed the back panel and adjusted the coils, wiping sweat from his brow. When he turned to head inside, he froze. Nara was standing in the doorway, holding a towel. Your face is dirty, she said. Jack blinked. Yeah, it's a dusty planet. She walked to him and held the towel out, both hands open. He took it. Thanks. She nodded. You gave me something I wanted to give back. Jack wiped his face. I didn't give to get. I know, she said. But I still want to. That evening they sat near the old heater. Jack had lit a small fire in the stove, more for comfort than heat. Nara sat closer this time, still wrapped in her blanket, but not as tight. Her shoulders were more relaxed. Her feet stretched out near the edge of the warm stone tiles. He handed her a mug. Tea, he said again. Real this time. She took a sip, then paused. Her eyes lit slightly. It's sweet. Found a packet of fruit leaf powder in the back. It's better than water, she said. Better can be dangerous. She looked at him. Why? Because then you miss it when it's gone. She went quiet, then said, let's not let it go. He didn't respond, just refilled his own cup. That night, Nara didn't sleep on the floor. She didn't ask. Jack simply rolled out a thin mattress and placed it near the heater, covered it with an old sheet, laid down a folded shirt as a pillow. She stared at it for a long time. If I sleep there, I might not wake up, she said softly. You will, Jack said, and if I do, and it was all just a dream, then I'll still be here when you wake up. She lay down slowly, like her bones weren't sure if rest was allowed. Then she curled up under the sheet, pulling it to her chin. Her eyes blinked slowly in the warm light, and finally they closed. Jack watched her for a moment. The fire cracked. The wind outside moaned against the siding, but inside it was quiet and warm. And for the first time in a long time, the silence didn't feel lonely. It felt like peace. Whispers in the dust, The sun rose later than usual, clouded behind thick beige skies that rolled across Colony 7's horizon like lazy smoke. Jack stood by the window, cup in hand, watching the storm settle in. Wind meant downtime, wind meant silence, but this time, it didn't feel empty, not since she arrived. Behind him, Nara stirred on the mattress. She didn't jump up like she had the first morning, didn't scan the room for exits or reach for invisible threats. She just opened her eyes and stared at the ceiling, blinking like she was adjusting to reality. Jack turned. "You sleep okay?" She nodded once. "I dreamed of something soft." Jack smiled. "That's the blanket. I thought maybe I had died." He shook his head, still very much breathing. She sat up, pulling the sheet around her. It felt like something people don't get to feel for free. Jack didn't say anything. He didn't have to. Breakfast was simpler that morning. Dry toast, canned fruit, but Nara didn't hesitate anymore. She sat at the table like it was hers too. She chewed like she wasn't afraid of losing it with every bite. "You're getting used to this," Jack said, pouring tea. "Want to?" She replied honestly. "Because then it hurts more if it ends." He nodded. "Been there." She looked at him. "Then why did you help me?" Jack leaned back in his chair. "Because I remember what it's like when no one does." Later that afternoon, he went to the parts depot, just a simple coolant coil for his aging converter. But even before he stepped inside, the air changed. People weren't subtle. They never had been. "Hey Jack," Brett, the supply clerk, called, but his smile didn't touch his eyes. "Heard you've got company now." Jack nodded. "A friend." "Friend, huh?" Brett tapped a stylus against his datapad. "Odd sort of friend. Not exactly our kind. She's not hurting anyone, yet." Jack clenched his jaw. "Need a coil, Brett." Brett handed it over. "Just watch your back. Her kind aren't known for staying where they're placed." Jack didn't answer. He just paid, nodded, and left. On his way back, whispers followed him like wind through dry leaves. "Feeding strays now, he's lost it. She robbed him blind." He didn't argue. He didn't stop. He just walked, because every step forward was a choice, and he'd already made his. When he got home, the quiet soothed him instantly. He stepped inside, and stopped. Nara had cleaned again. Not just the floors, this time. The walls had been wiped. The tools on the bench reorganized. The cooking area gleamed like someone had actually cared for it. She stood by the counter, drying a mug with an old rag. She didn't look up. "You didn't have to do all this," Jack said. "I know," she replied. He stepped closer. "Then, why?" "Because I wanted to show you I see it. See what you didn't have to help me either, but you did. You gave without asking. That's rare." He set down the coil. "I didn't want something in return, I know, but I wanted to give anyway. Not out of debt. Just," she paused. "To be human, maybe that's what you do, right? You care without asking first." Jack chuckled. "Not always, but it's what we try to do." She handed him the mug. "Then I want to try too." That evening, Jack sat near the heater, reading. An old manual. Nara joined him not far away, not too close. She sat with the blanket around her shoulders, her cup of tea steaming gently between her palms. "You built all this?" she asked, looking at the furniture, the shelves, the small home he had crafted over years. "Most of it, it feels lived in." "Is that good?" "Yes, my old world. Everything was clean and perfect, but no one smiled there, not even." The walls had marks. Sounds lonely. It was silence stretched. Not awkward, just there. Then Nara said, "I used to think I was broken. You're not. You don't even know what I've done." "I don't care why." Jack looked over. "Because I know what you've done since you got here. You shared, you cleaned, you gave when you didn't have to. That's enough." Her eyes softened, and for the first time, she let herself lean back into the wall like she trusted it to hold her. Later that night, Jack pulled out an old box from the storage room. He laid out spare wood, screws, and sheets of foam. Nara watched, curious but silent. "What are you doing?" she finally asked. "Making a bed." "For who?" He gave her a sideways look. "Who do you think?" She frowned. "I don't need one." "I didn't ask. You gave me a mattress already. That was alone. I'm not staying forever." "Doesn't matter." He kept building, quietly, slowly, like it wasn't even a big deal. She moved closer, sat cross-legged, on the floor. "Why do you keep doing this?" Jack looked up. "Because every time I do, you stop looking like you're ready to run." She didn't reply, but her fingers reached forward, and she gently touched the edge of the frame. She didn't cry, didn't smile, didn't speak, but Jack saw it. In the way her shoulders dropped, the way her breathing calmed. That night, the house didn't feel like a shelter anymore. It felt like a beginning. A place in the dust. Morning came with rain, not heavy, just soft enough to beat against the windows and paint the glass in silver streaks. Jack stood by the door, sipping warm water from a dented cup, staring into the foggy colony beyond his fence. Everything was quiet except the drops against the roof. For once, the world outside matched the stillness. Inside, Nara stepped into the room wrapped in the coat he'd given her. She hadn't worn it since that night, the one when she thought warmth had to be repaid. But now, she wore it like it belonged to her, not as a trade, not as guilt. Jack turned to her. "Sleep okay?" She nodded. "I dreamed of gardens." He raised a brow. "Any good ones?" "There were roots, things growing." Jack smiled. "Sounds like progress. I've never had roots before." They ate in silence. Nara was different, now less skittish, but still guarded. Her eyes didn't search for exits anymore, but they still watched every movement Jack made, like she was trying to learn his rhythm. He didn't mind. He moved slow on purpose. Steady, predictable. For her, the rain let up by midday. Jack grabbed a toolbox and headed out to fix a cracked solar frame along the back wall. Nara followed, quiet as always. "You don't have to help," he told her. "I want to," she said. They worked side by side, him holding the frame, her handing him tools one by one. She didn't ask what each was called, but Jack noticed she remembered exactly where to place them the second time around. "You learn fast," he said. "I was trained to adapt." "Well, you're not on a battlefield now. Take your time." "I don't know how." Jack looked at her. "Then this is a good place to learn." When they finished, Nara leaned against the shed wall, breathing softly. The wind had picked up again, but she didn't seem bothered. She looked out over the edge of the colony, eyes thoughtful. "People don't like me here," she said suddenly. Jack tightened a bolt. "They don't know you. They know enough. I look different. I talk different. I came from somewhere else." Jack stood. "So did I, once." She tilted her head. "You were born here. I wasn't born this version of me. Life made me leave things behind, made me change. That's like being born again, in a way where you alone, too." For a long time she didn't say anything, but when they went back inside, she walked beside him, not behind. That night, as Jack prepared tea, there was a knock at the door. He opened it to find Counselor Delon and two others, all in polished grey uniforms that smelled like old metal and colder intentions. "Jack," Delon said, "we need to speak." Jack stepped aside slowly, only slightly. Nara stood in the corner, half-shadowed, coat pulled tighter around her shoulders. Delon nodded toward her. "We've had reports." Jack crossed his arms. "From who?" "The colony's been uncomfortable with your guest. She's an unregistered outsider, unknown species, no record of integration. This could compromise security." "She's done nothing wrong. Has she filed for residential status?" "She doesn't even know what that is." Delon sighed, as if Jack were a stubborn child. "She needs to be processed. If she resists, she'll be escorted out." Jack's voice didn't rise, but his words sharpened. "Processed. Like freight. It's procedure." Nara stepped forward. "I'll go." Jack turned sharply. "No, you won't." Delon raised a hand. "See, she's cooperative." Jack moved between them. "She stays here. She can't. It's protocol. She's a person." Delon frowned. "And you're not thinking clearly. You're too attached." Jack stepped closer. "You're not attached enough." The tension cracked like dry wood. Delon held Jack's stare for a moment, then turned to Nara. "If you're still here, in 3 days without registration, we'll have to remove you." They left. The silence afterward was loud. Nara sat at the table, unmoving. Jack poured her tea and set it down. She didn't drink. "You don't have to leave," he said. "I don't want to cause you trouble. You're not. I am." People talk. They stare. Now officials are here. Jack sat across from her. "Let them stare. I've lived alone long enough. I'm not about to let go of the first person who made this house feel alive." Nara's fingers curled around the cup. "They'll come back. Then I'll be ready." Her voice cracked. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you were someone, before they made you feel like nothing, and I see that someone." She swallowed hard. That night, Jack laid a blanket over the newly built bed again, just like the night before, but this time Nara stood in the doorway, watching. "Do you ever regret helping me?" she asked. "Not once." "If they take me away, will you forget me?" He looked at her, unwavering. "You're already part of this place. I couldn't forget you if I tried." She stepped into the room and sat on the edge of the bed, pulling the blanket into her lap. "Then I'll fight," she whispered. Jack raised a brow. "What do you mean?" "If they try to take me, I won't go quietly. Not anymore." Jack smiled softly. "That's the spirit, but I'm afraid." "Good," he said. "Means what you're holding is worth something." Nara leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "What if I'm not ready?" Jack sat in the chair beside the bed. You are. She closed her eyes. Then stay here. Just tonight, he nodded. And, in the quiet, with the storm in the distance and the warmth of defiance between them, Nara finally slept not in fear, but in resolve. The fire beneath stillness the next morning brought a different kind of silence, not the silence of peace, but of tension, the kind that hovered just beneath the skin, waiting. Jack moved through the house with careful steps. He checked the solar array twice, polished the kettle until it gleamed. Nara sat at the window wrapped in the coat he gave her, not speaking, not blinking, watching the colony. They'll come back, she said at last. I know, Jack replied without turning. I heard them yesterday. After they left, the councilman, one of them said, I was a risk. You're not. They think I am. Jack poured tea and slid the mug across the table. Let them think what they want. You're here, with me. That's the only part I care about. Nara's fingers curled around the warm ceramic. She didn't drink, just held it close like she might need it later for strength. What happens if they don't give us a choice? Jack leaned against the wall. Then we show them what choice looks like. Outside, the colony moved with cold efficiency. The councilman walked in pairs now, whispering to settlers. Jack noticed neighbors who once nodded, now avoided his eyes. A group of boys threw pebbles at his gate before running off laughing. One older trader who used to share stew turned away when Jack approached the well. Fear was a powerful infection, and it spread fast. That evening, Nara sat by the fire with her knees drawn up under the blanket. Her eyes stayed low, voice softer than usual. I used to believe I had to earn my place anywhere I went. Perform, obey, be useful, or be gone. Jack stirred the stew. Who taught you that? My planet, Jack grunted. Then your planet was wrong. Maybe, but it worked. It kept me alive, even if it broke something inside me to do it. He looked up from the pot. You're not broken. Nara met his eyes. Then why do I flinch every time someone's kind to me? Jack walked over, crouched beside her, his voice a whisper. Because real kindness is rare. It scares the hell out of people who never got it before. A knock echoed across the walls. Jack stood slowly. Nara froze. This time it wasn't. Councillor Della and Dot, two strangers, stood on the porch. One was a woman with a weathered face, patched uniform, and a plasma pistol strapped across her hip. The other, younger, wore a long coat and held a clipboard. They didn't smile. We're here on behalf of colonial security, the woman said. Jack stayed in the doorway, arms crossed, and we received reports of a non-registered alien residing in this sector. You're housing her. Jack didn't respond. We're not here to arrest anyone, the woman added quickly, but her eyes were cold. We're here to relocate her to a processing facility. Standard integration sounds like a prison, Jack said. The younger one looked down at the clipboard. It's protocol. She's not leaving, Jack said. The woman exhaled. Sir, you're obstructing enforcement. If you interfere with government relocation, you'll be fined or detained. Jack opened the door wider. You want to take her, you'll need more than 2 people. There was a pause. A silent calculation. We'll be back, the woman said. With authorization. Jack watched them walk away until the horizon swallowed. Them. Nara stepped up behind him. They'll bring soldiers. Then I'll make dinner for all of them, he said. I'm not worth this fight. He turned to her. Yes, you are. That night, Nara didn't eat much. She cleaned again, folding towels and adjusting things that didn't need adjusting. Jack let her. He understood it wasn't about cleanliness, it was control. Some small way to feel safe. Later, as the fire dimmed, she spoke again. If they come tomorrow, I'll go. Jack said nothing. Nara looked over. Did you hear me? I heard, and I'm not agreeing. I don't want you hurt because of me. Jack stared at the glowing embers. What makes you think I haven't already been hurt? Nara went still. Jack leaned forward, elbows on knees. I lived alone for years. I talked to myself more than I talked to people. I built this house with walls thick enough to keep sound out, because I didn't want to hear the world anymore. He looked at her, and then you showed up, and you didn't ask for anything. You didn't demand. You just sat there, and for the first time, this place didn't feel empty. Nara's eyes shimmered. I won't go, she whispered. He nodded. Good, but if they really come, I'll fight. Jack handed her a wrench. Then let's start building something worth fighting for. They spent the next hours tightening bolts on the storm barriers, reinforcing window seals, and setting up the old beacon array Jack never thought he'd use again. Nara worked in silence, fast, efficient. She wasn't hiding anymore. She was preparing at midnight. Jack caught her staring at the stars. Do you miss your home? He asked. I don't know where it is anymore. He stood beside her. Then, make a new one. She looked up at him. Here. Where else? The night passed without visitors, but they both knew tomorrow would not be quiet. When the quiet breaks, the wind was strong that morning. Dust spun in small circles on the colony's outer paths, and the sky wore a bruised shade of grey. Jack stood by the reinforced fence, a wrench in one hand and his gaze locked on the horizon. Inside the house, Nara adjusted the solar kettle. She didn't ask Jack what time it was. She didn't need to. They both felt it. Today was the day. At midday, a low humming filled the sky. Not thunder. Engines. 3 transport shuttles landed near the old drilling fields, kicking up clouds of red dust. Jack stepped out onto the porch just as Nara joined him. The coat flared in the breeze, and her face was unreadable. They brought soldiers, she said quietly. They always do when they're scared. A line of figures disembarked. Most wore black security armor with orange insignias on the shoulder. The officer from the day before led them, her helmet tucked under one arm. This time, no clipboard, just force. Jack stepped forward before they reached the fence. You're trespassing, he said. We're authorized. You're not welcome, the officer signaled. The soldiers moved forward. Nara didn't hide. She stepped beside Jack, calm and still. The officer stopped 5 paces from the gate. This is your last chance, she said. Hand her over, and we leave peacefully. Refuse, and we'll remove her by force. Jack didn't flinch. She's not property. She's undocumented, dangerous. She's a gardener, a cook. She sings when she thinks no one hears. The officer's eyes narrowed. Sir, step aside. No. The soldiers moved in. Then Nara did something unexpected. She stepped in front of Jack. Wait, she said, her voice clear. The soldiers hesitated. I will speak, she said, but not as a fugitive. As a person. The officer gestured slightly, allowing it. Nara looked each soldier in the eye. Then the officer. I came here broken, she said. Starving. Alone. I was trained to believe I was worthless unless I gave something in return. She motioned to Jack, didn't want anything from me. He just let me exist. And in that quiet, I remembered who I was. The officer's grip on her helmet tightened. I am not dangerous. I am not a weapon. But I will not be taken again. One of the soldiers raised his weapon slightly. Stand down, the officer barked. Jack stepped beside Nara again. We're not moving, he said. Then the unexpected happened. From the edge of the colony, a voice called out, an older woman. She walked up, holding a small crate of vegetables. She helped me plant this season, she said, placing the crate down. Another man followed, holding a toolbox, fixed my water regulator. Then a couple parents stood nearby. She watched our child when we fell sick. In moments, 6 colonists stood between the house and the soldiers. Nara's eyes widened. Why are they here? Jack smiled faintly. People notice quiet kindness. It just takes time. The officer looked around, uneasy. This doesn't change protocol. Jack raised his voice. Protocol doesn't feed the hungry. Protocol doesn't wrap a blanket around a freezing goal. Protocol doesn't stop to ask what happened before judging someone's scars. Silence fell. Then a different voice, deep and unfamiliar, came from the shuttle's rear. A man stepped forward in full command attire, higher rank, older, grey, in his beard and a different kind of weariness in his eyes. Stand down, he ordered. The officer turned. But sir, stand down. She obeyed. The man walked forward. His eyes settled on Nara, then Jack. I watched the security feeds, he said. You know, the ones we thought we'd use as evidence. All I saw was 2 people sharing tea, working a garden, building a fence. Jack didn't respond. The man exhaled. We have to follow rules. Yes, but sometimes, we forget what the rules were meant to protect. He turned to the officer. Withdraw, no detainment. She stiffened, but obeyed. Then the commander looked at Nara. I can't promise. The galaxy won't come knocking again. But today, you're not their target. You're just someone who found a better place. Nara bowed her head slightly. Thank you. He offered Jack a brief nod and walked away. The soldiers followed. Within minutes, the ships were gone, settled, but something had shifted. Jack looked at Nara. She looked at the colonists who had stood for her. For once, her lips parted in something close to a smile. I thought they all hated me, she whispered. Not all, just loud ones. She turned to him. I don't know how to repay you. You already did. How you stayed. That night, she sat by the fire again, holding a steaming mug of herbal tea. Her hands didn't shake. She didn't glance at the door like she expected it to burst open. She just sat there, still, peaceful. Jack added another log to the fire. The crackle filled the room. Nara watched the flames. I think I'd like to build something here. she said. A bed, Jack teased. A future, he looked at her, surprised. I'm tired of running, she said. If I plant seeds here, I want to be around to see what grows. You're not alone. She smiled this time, fully. I know. The stars outside blinked gently. And for the first time in a long time, Nara didn't just feel safe, she felt home. The seeds that grew the sun crept over the edge of the red hills, casting golden light across the colony rooftops. In Jack's yard, rows of small plants swayed gently in the morning breeze. Dew clung to the leaves, life clinging to life. Nara stood barefoot in the soil, her sleeves rolled to her elbows, her hands stained with earth. She was humming softly, the same tune she had once whispered while cooking stew on a cold night. It wasn't a song of sadness anymore. It was something lighter, something growing. Behind her, Jack leaned against the porch rail, watching. You missed a spot, he said. She didn't turn, just flicked a clump of dirt his way. It landed near his boot. You could help, you know. I'm supervising, he replied with a grin. You're pretending to supervise. That too. They shared a quiet moment, only the rustle of leaves between them. Then Jack walked down the steps and knelt beside her. Together, they planted the last seedling. That it was nothing special, just a ground vine that would grow bitter fruit. But as Nara pressed the soil around its base, she looked at it the way someone might look at a newborn, like something small, but impossible to give up. They'll grow slow, she said. Good things usually do. The colony had changed. Not fast, not all at once. But it had changed. A few colonists still looked at Nara with hesitation. But more often than not, they waved when they passed her in the market. The butcher had started setting aside cuts of meat for her for soup, he always said, though he never asked for anything in return. The schoolteacher invited her to speak to the children, not about her planet or war, but about her favorite herb for flavoring rice. She said mint, and 3 kids wrote it down like it was a sacred answer. Even Brett, the gruff old supply clerk, had come around. Don't tell anyone, he grumbled, handing her a box of powdered yeast. But your bread's better than my wife's. Nara had bowed her head in thanks, biting her lip to hide the smile. Inside the house, small changes had taken root too. Jack had cleared space in the bedroom, not as a guest room, not a corner, but a second pillow, a shared dresser, a fresh brush beside the mirror. They didn't talk about what it meant. They didn't need to. One evening, as the sky turned copper, Jack found Nara standing in the doorway holding a folded piece of fabric. I made this, she said. He took it gently. It was a shirt stitched unevenly, with mismatched buttons, but soft, warm. He ran a thumb over the seams. It's not perfect, she said. He looked up. It's home. She breathed in long and deep, like someone letting go of years they didn't realize they were carrying. Then she stepped forward and placed a kiss on his cheek. No ceremony, no need for more. That night, they shared tea by the fire again. Jack brought out the cracked old compass he kept by the window. Still points north, he said. She smiled. Still here. There was a knock at the door. Jack stood. You expecting someone? She shook her head. When he opened it, a stranger stood there, a young man in dusty overalls, holding a satchel and a datapad. I'm from Central Registry, he said. We're updating civilian records after the raid. Heard someone new was staying here. Jack stepped aside without hesitation. Come in, the man blinked. She's allowed to stay. Jack nodded. She's mine. This is her home. The man looked at Nara. She didn't hide. She didn't lower her eyes. Name, he asked. She didn't pause. Not a species. Does it matter? He smiled slightly. Not anymore. The man filled in the details and asked her to sign the registry. When he left, Jack closed the door quietly. Nara looked at the digital copy of the form glowing on the table. It said, resident name, Nara citizen, Colony 7 status, confirmed notes, no further inquiry required. She stared at it for a long time. Then she reached for a pen. You already signed it, Jack said. I'm not adding my name, she whispered. I'm writing my story. He watched as she began scribbling in the margins. A few lines at first, then more. It wasn't neat, it wasn't polished, but it was hers. That night, Jack found her asleep at the table, head resting beside the glowing screen, hands still curled around the pen. He picked her up gently and carried her to bed. Before he left the room, she murmured something. What? He asked softly. Her voice was barely audible. Don't stop choosing me. He brushed her hair back. Never. The next morning, as the colony stirred and the sun climbed higher, Nara stood once again in the garden. This time, she wasn't planting, she was harvesting. Small fruits, a few herbs, nothing much, but enough for breakfast. Jack came out yawning, rubbing his eyes. She tossed him an apple-like fruit. You supervise. I cook. He caught it. Deal. They ate together on the porch, feet bare, wind soft. The world still had storms. The galaxy still spun with war and politics and danger. But here, in this small corner of red dirt and morning light, two lives had found something stronger than fear. They had found home.